Hey, what's up everybody? Retro Gaming Guy here. Today in this video, we're going to unbox, demo, and review the Ampown XU10 handheld video game console. So I just picked this up off of AliExpress. This advertises over 10,000 retro video games, plug and play, ready to go on this handheld. So let's dive into it and see what it has in store for us. All right, guys, here we have our XU10 handheld console. We'll go ahead and open this up. Now, one thing worth mentioning about this is a Linux system, and it also has a 3.5-inch IPS screen on here. So I'm going to go ahead and take the console out. This comes with a USB-A to USB-C cable in here, so that's how we would actually charge the handheld itself. We also have a user manual. I'm going to just kind of thumb through this really quickly, just to verify what it has to offer. It does walk through a little bit of the setup process, how to reboot, how to shut down, how to start everything up. Also walks through all the different functions and features here for the controls. So always great to have. It looks to be pretty thorough. We also have a screen protector included in here and some wipes that we would use to actually clean the screen off prior to installing this. This is always good to have for any handheld out there. So let's take a look at the actual handheld itself. All right, guys, so here is the handheld itself. I love the layout of this. It seems to be really comfortable. The screen is a large size, only 3.5 inches, but it looks like it's really a profound size. Looks very bold as of right now, so I can't wait to dive into games and see if it utilizes every bit of this or if we have some thick bezels on the sides. If it utilizes every bit of the surface that we're seeing here, this is going to be a great experience. As long as, the resolution is adequate. Now, buttons over here, let me put this in my hands and just kind of hit some buttons, see what the feel is like on here. Really responsive buttons, really great action on here, no binds, no, sticky buttons anywhere, just great response, great feel to them. I really like the D-pad here, and a little bit hard to see here in the video. Let me see if I can get the right angle. I wish I had a lighter background, maybe against my shirt there. You can see that it's actually like a little pit in the center, and it kind of swoops. So we have a low point in the center, and then each one of the directions on the D-pad kind of goes up like this, kind of like a half pipe. And that makes it really comfortable where you kind of rest your finger in the middle, and you can just navigate up, down, side to side, or, kind of hit those diagonal sort of directions, and it just feels very comfortable. Now we have dual analog sticks here. I like the fact that we have both of those. We also have the button function built in. Seems to be great. They are very small, so I definitely want to see what the feel is like, in game on those. Make sure everything, has a good feel to it. My only concern when they're so small is sometimes they're super sensitive or not sensitive enough. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out. So if we go over here to the right-hand side, we have a button that is labeled G. That's going to be our game settings button. And what I'm going to be looking for is, can we access our game settings within games? A lot of handhelds have it so you can hit the button to access your settings, but you have to be in your main menu. You can't do it from within games. I hate that because sometimes I like to adjust brightness based on the title that I'm in, or tweak and customize some of the other settings. And game by game, the needs are going to differ. So if you have to kind of guesstimate what your settings are going to be prior to jumping into a game, or you have to exit the game, jump out, make adjustments, and then jump back into the game to see whether those adjustments were good or not, it just takes away from the experience. It is just an inefficient way to do that. So I want to see if we can access our settings when we're actually launched into games. So I'll be on the lookout for that. This looks like an indicator light over here on the side. We'll probably hit that lit up as we power this on. Headphone jack up here. Down here we have our micro SD card slot. Let's see if we can eject the micro SD card. Always make sure you do this when this is powered off. And I just want to see the capacity of the card here. 64 gigabytes on the micro SD card, so that's good. Pretty good for a stock card. It is well recessed in. You can see I'm struggling to re-engage it. That's a good thing. You don't want to run the risk of, accidentally ejecting that while you have this powered on and you're, midway through a game. You risk corrupting your card if you do that. So I like the way that, this is super recessed in, and we have to kind of struggle to, eject it or reinsert it. And obviously if you had like a little pen, you would be able to get in there much easier than just your fingertips. Backside, we have our shoulder and trigger buttons. So R1, R2, L2, L1 right over here. Looks like speaker on the back side. We have our power button right back here. Weird placement, but I like the weird placement because there's no risk of ever accidentally hitting your power button while gaming. Sometimes when it's on the side, especially right over here, you can see my finger is not far off from where most of these handhelds would have a power button. So if that was the case, you know, you're in an intense game, you accidentally slide up and you hit that, it can definitely, you know, do a unsafe shutdown. So I like the weird placement here. We also have a reset button right next to that. Up here across the top, we have two USB-C ports. One is going to be our OTG, the other one's going to be our DC, so that's where we will plug in our power supply cable, which we have right here. Charge this bad boy up. Over here on the left-hand side, volume control, plus for volume up, minus for volume down. And then over here, we have another micro SD card slot. It is empty. That's how this comes by default. I'm interested to see if we could go in here and customize, you know, the operating system. Maybe we can use one slot for operating system, one for our games, and we could get a 2 micro SD card setup out of this and, you know, just maximize our experience. I'm not sure what the capabilities are there, but it does look promising given the fact that there are 2 micro SD card slots. Nothing down here at the bottom. That seems to be pretty much everything. We also have what I assume is a speaker right over here in the center. So let's power this on and see what we've got. I'm going to go ahead and hold down my power button here. Show you guys as it boots up. All right, guys, so here is how we land in here, and it immediately took me to PSP. I'm not sure if A is going to select titles or B is going to select titles. Let's see, it says here, there's a little diagram, says B is back, so let's back up. I guess there's no backing out of this. This is how it is. It's going to bring you right into your collection. So let me see. I think that we can scroll down with our shoulder buttons here, and we can go collection by collection with our trigger button. So let's kick it all off. We'll start where we landed with PSP. So PSP, we have, I believe that number in the center up top is our game count for this collection. So we've got 50 titles in here for PSP. I would venture to say that this is likely going to be a lot of PSP minis games, like Angry Birds, definitely PSP minis. There's definitely Assassin's Creed is not. Let's see. Yeah, so it seems to be pretty well mixed between minis games and regular games. There seems to be a lot of full-on PSP games, though. Here's another minis. So looks pretty good. Ducati Challenge. Let's see. God of War Chains of Olympus. Pretty cool game there. Grand Theft Auto Vice City. That would be Stories, right? I believe. Yep, Vice City Stories. Hercules, Chariot Racing. I'm not familiar with that one. That looks pretty cool. It's a minis game, though. Mega Man Maverick Hunter. Let's see what else. NBA 2K13. That's actually a pretty good one. NBA Street Showdown. Ridge Racer, which is always one of my favorites. I love testing out Ridge Racer. We also have Sega Rally Revo. Tekken 6, TNT Racers, World Ping Pong Championships, Zombie Racers. Looks pretty cool, actually. Much more impressive than we typically get on plug-and-play handheld setups like this for PSP. So that actually is pretty impressive. Let's go over to the next collection. This is going to be PlayStation 121 titles here. And we have 007 Tomorrow Never Dies, ATV Racers, Batman and Robin, Batman Beyond, Batman Forever. Blades in here. Let's see. Castlevania title. A couple of Castlevania titles. Contra, Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3, Bash, as well as Crash Team Racing. Probably check out one of those. Dead or Alive. Diablo, Die Hard Trilogy, Digimon. Just a lot of really great titles in here, actually. So I'm definitely liking the selection of games. Some Harvest Moon, Gran Turismo, the original, Looney Tunes, some Mega Man, Mortal Kombats are in here. Quite a few Mortal Kombats. Looks like Trilogy. What's this one? Special Mortal Kombat Special Forces, Mortal Kombat 4. Got some Resident Evil, Tekken 2 and 3, Time Crisis. Time Crisis on here would be interesting. I don't think that would be great experience. Obviously, you wouldn't have the light guns. Twisted Metal, Toy Story Racer. Good stuff. Next collection is Nintendo DS. We have 146 titles here. Let's kind of scroll through this briefly. I'm not super familiar with DS games, but Diddy Kong Racing is cool. I know that one. Dirt 2 is a good one. Definitely some good stuff in here. Grand Theft Auto, Kirby games, Lego games, Mario games, bunch of Mario games. Metroid Prime Pinball, bunch of Pokemon. Cool. Resident Evil. All right. Next collection, N64, 139 titles. This looks pretty good too. It's definitely a high number for a handheld like this, especially considering the fact that this is just 64 gigabytes. So, World Is Not Enough. I love that game. California Speed is an excellent racing game. And we'll jump in here and we'll test out some games as well, because I want to see what the capabilities are for N64. N64 is not an easy one to emulate on handhelds, especially. On anything, really, but handhelds especially do struggle. Donkey Kong 64. Hydro Thunder over here. I love Hydro Thunder. Kirby 64. Two different Kirbys. Mario Kart 64. Looks like we've got two different versions, so one might be a hack. Oh, excuse me, three different versions. We've got Amped Up here. I'm not familiar with those, but I believe they're probably hacks or some custom-made games. We've got Mario Golf. We've got Mario Party, Mario Party 2, 3, Mario Party 64. We've got some Mega Man, Mortal Kombat, NBA games. Really a great selection here. Paper Mario, Paperboy, Pokemon, Star Fox 64. We're getting into some challenging stuff here. Supersonic. Some Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, Turok. WCW Nitro. Don't tell me you got WCW Nitro and not WCW NWO Revenge. Gotta have that. Well, that's too bad. And no WWF, no Mercy. Okay, that's gonna bug some people. Nitro's probably, not to nitpick, but Nitro's probably like the worst wrestling game. Oh, excuse me, no, it's not. WCW Backstage Assault is the worst wrestling game, but Nitro is definitely not in the top of my N64 wrestling titles, but hey, there's still a really great selection of other titles here. So let's continue on. We have Game Boy Advance here with over 1,000 games, 1,024 titles. I'm not going to spend too much time in this collection, but love Game Boy Advance, and I love the fact that that is just chock full of awesome titles. And I'm sure we have all of our favorites in here because that's a massive number for, an all-inclusive sort of game list for that collection. So let's back out. Let's go into the next one. Super Nintendo, 1,268 games in here. Another massive collection. Really impressed by just how many games are included. And these aren't massive, taking up a lot of room in terms of storage for these titles, but still really impressive with what is offered here. We got some great titles in here too. And we're only to the B's right now. Some Batman titles. Confident that we're going to have just pretty much everything that we're looking for, because 1,268 is definitely massive. NES, 1,968. So massive here. And I'm not seeing a lot of duplicates. I'm seeing like some stuff like that's either like a customized maybe hack, or sometimes we'll find like multiple releases, like you'll get a Japanese release and a USA release, same title, but essentially different versions or different releases. I'm not even seeing a whole lot of duplicates though in general. So this looks really good. Let's go to the next collection. This one just says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is Shredder's Revenge. Okay. I'll have to check that out because I'm not really sure what I don't know what that goes to. It's just its own like collection here. But that looks pretty cool. Open Bore, Beats of Rage. Love these custom side-to-side beat-em-up style games. These are like custom-made titles, but there's always some really cool stuff to be found in here. This isn't like a massive collection by any means, only 19 titles, but you could always add more to it as well. And there are some great titles to choose from that aren't included on here. Dreamcast, only 11 titles in here for Dreamcast, but let's see what we have. We have Confidential Mission down here, Aqua GT, which I'm not super familiar with. I've seen videos of it. I don't think I've ever played that myself. Confidential Mission is an awesome light gun game. Again, we talked briefly about Time Crisis on here. I'm not sure how light gun would pan out. I guess we'll have to demo that in our demo portion of this. We've got Crazy Taxi 1 and 2, Death Crimson, Heavy Metal here. We've got House of the Dead 2, another light gun game. Somebody that put this together liked light gun games. I'm all for it, but not sure how it'll be on a handheld. We'll test it out though. Sonic Adventure 2, Soul Calibur, so good selection. You could argue that we got to have Sonic Adventure 1 on here, but still, great selection. Let's continue on. Sega Naomi. What do we have in here for this collection? Dolphin Blues, popular. Metal Slug 6, Power Stone 1 and 2. Do we have WWF Royal Rumble? We don't. We have Virtual Tennis 2, Rumble Fish. We didn't have Virtual Tennis for this, did we? No, not for Dreamcast either. Sega Saturn, we have just 7 games. Area 51, again, another light gun game. One of my favorites. Christmas Nights, not familiar with that. And some Bomberman in here. So pretty cool titles, but only 7 for Sega Saturn. Interested to see how they perform because maybe we'll test out Area 51 because Sega Saturn is another one of those collections that emulating it is tough. It's very demanding, especially on handheld, so we'll have to check that out, see what the experience is like. Sega Mega Drive, 966 titles here. Let's go the opposite way. Let's go up in reverse order. We've got some WWF here. We've got some X-Men here. We've got some soccer games, Wolverine, Wayne Gretzky. What else do we have? Let's see what we have for Sonic. Let's jump up here to the S titles. Oh, I love how we have the speed there too. Can we actually do the jump to? Sometimes if you hit select, you can jump to certain letters. Doesn't look like we have that here. So we have Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic Classics. So that'll give you like your older Sonic titles kind of bundled together. We have Sonic Eraser, Sonic Jam 6, Sonic the Hedgehog, the original, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So really a great selection here. Let's continue on. We have MAME, 1,273 games on here. MAME is one of my favorite collections. I love arcade games. Love this game too. 2-on-2 Open Ice Challenge, the NBA Jam of hockey games. Lots of great stuff. Let's scroll through here. What are we looking for? I always do this. Let's look for Moonwalker, Michael Jackson game. Not sure if it's going to be under MI for Michael Jackson or MO for Moonwalker. But let's jump in and see if we have it at least. Saw Jurassic Park. Of course we have that because the Light Gun Gamer put this together. I'm not hating. I like it. I like Light Gun games and I like Jurassic Park. But let's see. So I guess we'll try I first for Michael Jackson. It's probably under Moonwalker. Nope, there it is right there. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. That's awesome that that's included. I usually am like 50-50 on finding that in, collections like this, and especially in plug and play setups. Let's go down to W for WWF WrestleFest, one of my favorite games to dive into. We've got it. Awesome. We also have Wrestle War, which is cool. WWF Superstars, awesome title as well, and WWF WrestleMania. But WWF WrestleFest is definitely my favorite. So really impressed by this. I hope everything works because so far this setup is awesome. We have Capcom. All right, awesome. We have Capcom with 27 titles, Capcom System 1 with 31 titles, Capcom System 2 with 35 titles, and 3 with 8 titles. Love it. Love all of this stuff. You got to have the Punisher as well. That's just one of my favorites, and I'm not sure if it's in this collection. I think it's in one, if I'm not mistaken. There we go, the Punisher. Awesome. Love that title. Love so many of these titles. So Neo Geo over here, 170 games for Neo Geo. I don't know which way would be the quickest way. We have King of Fighters. I saw that. I want to see what we have for Metal Slug. We've got them all. Awesome. That's really all I play in Neo Geo. I got to venture out a little bit more because Neo Geo's got so many great titles, but I always play the same stuff. So if we didn't have enough stuff in name, we also have a Arcade Classics specific title here with even more arcade games, 206 to be exact. Looks good. A lot of older titles, but classic stuff nonetheless. Discs of Tron. Gauntlet, love Gauntlet. Golden Tee, that would be interesting on here. I wonder how that works. I guess we got to check it out. We have a lot of Golden Tee. This is the most Golden Tee games I've seen on a setup like this. Usually you get like one late 90s one, and then like one of the old ones, like Golden Tee 2 or maybe Classic, but we've got a lot of them here. 2K, awesome one. All right, so I'm interested to see how that works. Sometimes I've played that with like PlayStation style controllers and you use the analog stick and you kind of like flick this up to kind of follow through, and you kind of use this as a trackball. So I'm interested to see how that works. Amstrad CPC, 114 titles here. And I like the box art. I like how it shows box art with screenshot with a logo. It's just awesome the way they did that. They put all three into one. You know, obviously they're not going to have videos given the fact that we're limited on storage space capacity here with the micro SD card, but they kind of gave you the best of everything with the way they've done this. Continuing on, Atari 7800, 58 games. Atari Lynx with 83 games. Family Computer System here with 382 games. And I'm also not seeing a lot of duplicates here. I'm just hoping that this works and the games are, you know, running well on here, because this is a great plug and play setup to get right out of the gate. Usually what comes on these stock absolutely sucks and it's very limited. This is pretty impressive. Family Computer Disk System, 152 titles. Game & Watch, 52 titles. Game Gear, 376 titles. Original Game Boy, 529 games. Game Boy Color, 535 games. Impressive stuff. I spent so much time in cars, on like long car rides, playing WrestleMania 2000 on here. Betrayal, not so much. Not so much Attitude either, but definitely WrestleMania 2000 for Game Boy Color. Got some WCW in here. Do we have Ultimate Fighting Championship? Love the first UFC game too. Awesome. Intellivision, 135 games. Sega Master System, 265 games. So I'm sure we'll find some Sonic titles in here as well. And do we have Simpsons? There we go. The Terminator 2. Awesome. Addams Family. Wow, they've got it all on here. All right, so we're almost to Sonic. Might as well just ride it out. Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. Spinball as well. Chaos. Smash TV. Wow, I forgot about Smash TV. Interesting game. MSX 281 games. Neo Geo Pocket 8 games. Neo Geo Pocket Color 35 games. PC Engine 292 games. Mega Drive 32X 32 titles. SG-1000 from Sega, 68 titles. WonderSwan Color, 66 titles. And tools, we have Controller Test, always good to have that. And our All Games Master List. So 10,748 titles in total on here. And after the last video that I did where the plug and play setup was not in alphabetical order, I can say right here, this is in alphabetical order. Very easy to navigate. I wish we had the little jump to when we hit select. We could jump to specific titles that start with certain letters, but it's very easy to scan through here. And if you hold your D-pad down, I'll show you guys. It scrolls really quickly, and then it will give you the little window there where it's scrolling really fast, and it shows you, what you're looking at. So it's just advancing really quickly. Still takes a little while to get down to certain letters, but still awesome experience here. Favorites, nothing in favorites. Love the fact that they left that blank so we can go in and add our own favorite titles in here. And according to this little diagram, if we just hold down Y once we're highlighting our game, we can add it right over to favorites. So that's awesome. And then we're back to PSP with 50 games. So awesome selection. Love what this offers. Now we got to test this out though. We have to verify that things work properly. So let's dive into a bunch of games from a bunch of collections, see what the experience is like on the XU10 model from Ampown.
Strengthened the soul of Maxie.
All right, guys, we just jumped out of the Ampown XU110 handheld video game console, and I have to say this, first and foremost, this is a phenomenal handheld. This is absolutely mind-blowingly amazing, especially for the price point. At the time of this video, you can get this for $76 and change from AliExpress, and I think that's a phenomenal deal based on the performance you get and the plug-and-play setup that comes pre-installed, ready to go on this as soon as you open it up. So this has over 10,000 retro video games, plug and play, ready to go, and they work extremely well. So before we dive into the performance, let's first talk about the handheld itself. I love the layout here. I'm a big Game Boy fan, grew up playing the Game Boy Color. We have very much that sort of vibe to this with the vertical setup, but we have dual analog sticks on here, which means that we can play a lot more games than we typically could on like a Game Boy Color sort of setup. We can play PlayStation, Dreamcast, N64, Sega Saturn effortlessly on here, in addition to PSP. Now, I love the button layout. I love the functionality. I talked about this as I unboxed it. I kind of poked all the buttons, tested it out, what the experience was like there, obviously outside of gaming. And we don't have any binds or sticky buttons. Nothing feels awkward here. It does feel like high quality buttons on here. I wouldn't say the highest quality by any means, but they do their job and they do their job well. Love the layout. I love the D-pad. I talked about that, how we have that sort of recessed center to it. And then everything kind of swoops out. It just has a really, really comfortable feel to it. You can just kind of scroll over everything and glide effortlessly across those different navigation directions. Just really phenomenal. Analog sticks, great, very precise, and I was concerned about that just based on the fact that they are very small. They're also close together. It's probably going to bother some people if you have larger hands. I don't have the smallest hands, and it's pretty comfortable, but you know, they are smaller than some of the other handheld analog sticks out there, but they're precise. They feel really great. Especially in racing games, I just felt like everything was super on point there. So hats off to them there. I like the placement of all your buttons here. I said it was awkward in terms of where the power button is. It's a weird placement, but it makes total sense because there's no risk of accidentally hitting your power button here while gaming. Whereas on the side where we oftentimes see power buttons, it definitely is in a place where I could see you accidentally hitting your power button. Even if you don't fully hold it down and totally shut down your system, you may tap it to the point where it pauses things or throws off your experience. Love that it's on the back. Now, your shoulder and trigger buttons in the back, their placement is key. Really just right exactly where your fingers lie there. And if you're playing a game where you don't have to use those, you can kind of just lower your fingers down a little bit. I think that it works perfectly. Functionality is great on there. Now, audio quality on here, if you have it maxed out, I had it on 100% for the demos here. Some titles, if they're louder games, it does feel like there's a slight distortion or kind of a reverberation sort of effect on the speakers. So you may have to turn it down. Luckily, we have the volume control externally on here. We don't have to go into the settings, make adjustments there. We can just simply give it a couple taps, bring the volume down, and that sort of distortion goes away very quickly. So did want to make mention of that. Battery life on here, I didn't play this for hours and hours on end. Played it for a while though. Found it to be very reliable, good battery. So let's talk about the screen on here and the picture quality. This is a 3.5-inch IPS screen. The resolution on here is 640 by 480. So it's not, the highest quality resolution, but it does look very good and it looks much better in person. I found it to be a great picture in all honesty, given the fact that this is a smaller screen handheld console. And keep in mind, this is a video of me filming externally of a video screen. So in that process, we're going to lose some picture quality. We're also going to lose some resolution. So just keep that in mind. In person, it looks light years better than it does for you guys. And I think it looks pretty good for you guys as well. So I love the fact that we use for all of our games the majority of our screen here. I hate when we have a screen that looks like this at first glance, and then as we power this on, we end up with these really thick bezels on the screen, and a 3.5-inch screen actually turns into a 2.5 or a 2 3/4 screen very quickly because of the bezels, or maybe sometimes we jump into games and there's side art or the pictures are just optimized to be smaller. Not the case here. We use pretty much all of what is offered here on the screen. All the games are, for the most part, 4:3 aspect ratio. PSP is going to be a little bit larger, but it's optimized for the screen size that we have right on here. So in terms of what's offered for the plug and play card that comes pre-installed within here, we have over 10,000 retro video games, and the majority of our collections are jam-packed. Dreamcast was a little bit light, only a few titles there for Dreamcast. Luckily, what was provided worked very well. I would love to see more Dreamcast titles. I love Dreamcast, and given the fact that the performance in that collection was so good, of course, I'd want more. Now, what we're dealing with here is a 64 gigabyte micro SD card, so there are limitations there in capacity. I would recommend anybody getting this, back up your card just because it's a generic micro SD card. Generally with generic micro SD cards, we don't know how much longevity we're going to get out of them. They don't typically tend to last as long as like Samsung or SanDisk. They certainly could, but make sure that you're shutting it down the proper way. You don't want to just kind of cut the power to it or anything like that. You want to boot it down properly. So that will help you get longevity out of it, but still, there's no guarantees with the generic micro SD card. So back it up. I recommend backing it up to a larger capacity card. That way you can actually add more titles to your collections if you want to. And with Dreamcast, you can just kind of build that collection up a little bit more. N64 was a great start. We had pretty much all of my favorite titles there. There were a few that were missing, like 007 GoldenEye wasn't in there. I don't know how that would translate over to handhelds. Oftentimes that can be a little bit funny, just the way controls are laid out, and N64 games can be tough to map. So maybe they were just kind of leaving that off for a reason. Not entirely sure there. I imagine it would perform well. But yeah, the controls might be a little bit funny on a handheld. But yeah, we could definitely add some more games to N64 if we wanted to. Sega Saturn was a little light as well. Performance in Sega Saturn seemed to be great. We jumped into Area 51 there, which is obviously a light gun game. There were a lot of light gun games on here. They actually do run nicely. You just kind of have to get a feel for using, obviously, your analog stick as your light gun itself. So you're aiming with the analog stick. It's a little awkward. Certainly, the response time is going to be delayed from that of a light gun controller itself, but still worked out well in the end. So it was a great experience here. PSP was on point. Probably the best PSP emulation for a handheld, of this caliber. Oftentimes PSP is, hit or miss. And in this case, I found that it was definitely a hit more so than a miss. I think that they handpicked their games. So they picked games that were going to work very well, but I didn't have to go into settings and make adjustments. I didn't have to adjust frame rate or anything like that. Oftentimes with handhelds, again, especially budget-friendly handhelds, we do have to do that with PSP, so that was reassuring. Just really a great experience, and I feel like attention to detail definitely went into the setup here, whereas typically plug-and-play setups and the card that comes with handhelds like this, usually you have a lot of issues. Usually it looks like they kind of just threw stuff together to get you started, and they didn't really fine-tune anything. That's not the case here. They did an excellent job laying everything out. I love the attention to details. Even in the scraped content for each title, we had box art paired with a screenshot from the game, as well as a logo in most cases. So it just looked really well polished, very easy to navigate. And after the last experience I had diving into a plug-and-play setup, this is just an amazing experience across the board. I couldn't recommend this enough. Now, is this going to be in line with like the performance of a Steam Deck? Absolutely not. This is a $76 and change handheld console, not to be compared with, a super high-end handheld that's capable of modern day gaming. We just wouldn't be, giving it a fair shake in that regard. But for what it advertises and the game collections that are included on here, what you end up with is a reliable and just an exceptional handheld in the end. You can save yourself a boatload of money going this route as opposed to like a Steam Deck or something super high-end if the collections that you want to dive into line up with what's included on here. If you're looking for more advanced stuff like GameCube, PS2, original Xbox, then this isn't going to be for you. It's just not capable of handling games like that. But for Dreamcast, N64, Sega Saturn, and everything prior to that, this definitely has your back. You're going to get a great experience here, and I definitely think you're going to be very happy with your purchase, especially at that price point. So there's going to be a link up here at the top of your screen, as well as in the description of this video. Click that link, see what this has to offer. But in my experience here, it was absolutely phenomenal, and I definitely think you're going to have a very positive experience gaming on this. So let me know what you guys thought of this amazing budget-friendly handheld video game console here. Let me know in the comment section below. That's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for the continued support here on the channel. Please hit the thumbs up button here on the video if you enjoyed the content today. And of course, hit subscribe to stay in the loop for all future videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.